Okay. I hit the button. Are you good?
I don't have a microphone. What do you...
Well, I hope you're good. You don't have a microphone.
I got nothing to do.
Okay.
Where's your microphone?
It's over there. It's just not turned on.
He turned it off because you're here. He doesn't want to say anything that you don't approve of. Welcome back to Talking Story. My name is John Minton. I am here with my lovely wife again. Your name?
Matilda.
No.
Isn't that what you do here? You
No.
make up names?
Jacob does that.
Okay.
Jacob does that. You can be Matilda if you want.
I am Amy Minton.
And Jacob's hiding over there without a microphone today. So I am so happy Amy joined us today. This is happening, right? Like I'm starting to hear some booktubers, some people start to read David Mitchell. Couldn't make me happier. But what's happening is they're bouncing off a book. They're bouncing off Cloud Atlas. It's a little bit tough to start. And he is one of our favorite authors together.
Correct.
Actually, you introduced him to me.
Yes.
And I think you found him when you were getting your MFA? Or
No, I found him, David Liss, who is a friend of the channel.
David Liss, yeah.
Introduced me to David Mitchell in a writing class. And
not the actual dude.
Nope.
But the dude's work, yeah.
We met him later.
We met him later, yeah.
It was a great experience.
It was glorious.
So, yes, that's how I was introduced to him, and then I tried to get you to read him a number of times, and failed. And
and what happened? I found Cloud Atlas to be a trampoline and bounced off it like I'm hearing other people.
Correct. I also bounced off it, if that's the is that the proper term? The
That's
trampoline.
that's what folks
the trampoline,
say.
Yeah. I don't know many people who have successfully gone through it the first time. Although
Right.
I know some pretty patient readers who probably could.
Right.
But I wasn't one of them, and I know you weren't one of them.
I was
know
not.
Jacob's not one of them. I'm hearing some of your friends on YouTube are not.
Yeah. Jacobs hasn't tried to go back.
Haven't been patient with it.
It takes a little patience, right?
Well, if we're going to talk about David Mitchell, I mean, you have to talk about Cloud Atlas because that is the book. That is his book that he's really known for.
Right.
And well, he is known for something else, and we'll get to that. But to understand David Mitchell, you don't have to read this first. But it's just one that you need under your belt to understand what he's trying to do.
Absolutely. And I will say, we met him at World Fantasy.
Yes,
and
in San Antonio.
You made him tea. We
did.
we hung out. We spent some time in an elevator with the man.
Correct.
And I'm going to say right now, I don't understand him. Like, he's a different kind of cat.
Well,
He's not wired like I am.
I don't think. I mean, there's some people who I truly don't understand. I understood him. He's just one of those special people.
He's special. He's a lovely, lovely human being.
Oh my gosh!
I don't mean to say
so lovely
yeah.
and so kind and so generous.
Yes.
And not only with me and with you, with all the other fans
Absolutely.
who are meeting
Amazing.
him.
But it's like his creativity, just the way
his creativity and the way he thinks and the way he sees the world and the connections in the world. I was not disappointed.
Right.
A man who can write this and the things that we're about to talk about today, where that was exactly who I expected him to be, and he did not disappoint.
Absolutely.
But his kindness, and it cannot be overstated. He is definitely a person you can tell has really kind of mastered Zen.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so gentle and so
absolutely
so plugged in a practice of kindness and giving. And also, really fierce when he needs to be.
Yeah, he's one of those people that seems to know why the caged bird sings. He's got a secret I don't have.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So, after having admired his writing so long and meeting him, I was not disappointed.
Right, absolutely.
It was really kind of a highlight of my year.
So the way we set this up loosely, which we could, the whole house of cards could fall down, but the way we set this up is.
Yes.
I've got 5 reasons why I think people should read David Mitchell.
Right.
Why they should give him a try.
Right.
You got 5.
I do, but I've taken I've written my 5 reasons to express myself to people who usually read genre.
Yeah.
I would express them differently to people who read historical fiction or literary fiction.
Well, there's a lot of the people out there love historical fiction as well.
Then he's your man.
Yeah.
I mean, So we'll get to what he can do and the magic he's got and his innovations and the stuff that he's taken from some literary traditions and made his own. And then, he's just kind of like, in his recent books, kind of like skyrocketed toward cosmic horror. Would you call it cosmic horror? It was like, you would call it something different.
Yeah, it's horror. I mean, I definitely would call it.
But
He's such a genre blender, it's hard to pin him down.
It's hard to pin him down.
Yeah.
But like, he just... we'll get to that, but he just kind of like went off the reservation in Bone Clocks. That I was just like,
And I loved it. I loved it so much.
Sure, and a lot of people do love Bone Clocks. So let's talk about that.
You want to go first? Do you want me to go first with number 1?
I want to talk about what I started to talk about at Cloud Atlas.
So we're already, the House of Cards already coming down.
It already came down, but
okay. Well, you go first.
I want to talk a little bit about Cloud Atlas. I'm going to move it front and center here.
Yep.
And about some of the reasons why people can't get through this, or I'm not going to even say get through it. It's part 1 that's the problem.
Get into it.
Right.
It's not a blanket book. It won't suck you in and make you comfy.
Not right away.
Yeah.
This is a great example of metafiction, and this is where you're getting some fiction that is bringing a reader experience into the process. Usually, authors, if they're very good, will be able to kind of keep you in a separate world as a reader. You're going to be like. Engaged with the narrator, engaged with the character and the setting and the whatever, and you'll just be cut off. This is a process that's going to bring you in. And when you're reading the first part, if you're having difficulty, I would say this is a world that is seen, I think, through a mist. That he's very intentional with his linguistics and his prose. It is, I wouldn't say deliberately thick, but you have to trust in what he's doing and where he's bringing you. He is bringing you to, I don't want to be too spoilery, but there's something about this timeline that you need to know in this book that goes from, I believe, mid 18th century to a far apocalyptic future in Hawaii, and playing with language on those two ends of the timeline. You're getting to where it's kind of like at the brink of your contemporary understanding of how language works.
Right.
So
definitely your comfort zone.
Right. So in the far future, it's kind of getting away from you. There's like, the linguistics of
New
the phrases
slang
and the
new-
slang
yeah.
and everything is getting away from you. But I've seen authors and movies do this, like Firefly and Serenity, like
Oryx and Crake.
or Blade Runner, all of these things where you're going into the future, and Clockwork Orange, there's adaptations based on who's winning wars and who's running a revolution and how all of that comes about. So in the beginning, when we're dealing with mid-18th century, it's kind of off-putting because a lot of our brain shuts down and says boring and pushes it away. And I think all you really need to do to get the point of it is to let the story wash over you to where you're letting these pops of violence and connection, love, friendship, genocide, loyalty, betrayal, and like you're letting cruelty, all of these things just start popping out of the story. Like, whoa, where did that come from and what's going on? You don't need to understand every single bit of it.
No, and you won't, I don't think.
Well, I mean, on a first read, it's doubtful.
Yeah.
You would have to go back, and I have gone back. It's very difficult to get through it.
It's so anchored in the time and an anachronistic way of writing and speaking.
Right.
But you, like you say, you trust the process.
Trust it.
Don't beat yourself over the head to get every word. You'll get what you're supposed to get.
Get what you're supposed to get. Trust him. Then when you get to the next one, you're going to get a jolt of a voice that is more contemporary. And you're just like, whoa, here we are. And, and that voice is going to drag you along. And, all of a sudden you're with clones in a new South Korea.
Right.
That is way late stage capitalism and crazy, and then going into post-apocalypse, and he just takes you on a wild ride.
Yeah.
That is why, and it's just, there's so much about.
There's so much. There's every genre. There's
genre.
thriller, there's mystery, there's crime fiction, there's historical fiction, there's science fiction, there's post-apocalyptic.
Well, you're getting into yours now.
I mean,
this isn't the only book he does this.
Yeah.
But this is I think was his masterpiece to date. I think he's not finished.
Not finished.
But this is where I think, like, when I started to really understand and dig what he did is when I got a hold of this book
Yeah.
and said, this guy is really innovative.
Yeah.
And he's taken some bits from Vladimir Nabokov and Italia Calvino, and he's making them work for himself.
Right.
I just can't say enough great things about it. So
You know what? It's a love letter to all things story.
Yeah.
So there's no way he wouldn't.
if you're human, you'll love the book.
There's
If you
no
can
there's
just get through
it.
part one.
So there's no way he wouldn't spend the time to show language
Yeah.
in all of its glory, because at its essence, it's how a story makes us up and defines us, and what makes up a story is language.
Now something that you hated and like you threw it down because
I did.
you're a very patient reader and you were getting through the historical bits and you were complaining about it, but you were getting through. And then when he did his little trick at the end of part one, you were livid. You came to me and were just like, I can't believe this is a nasty trick and I hate it. And I was like, you just got to stick with it, dude.
But then you find out why.
There is a
Yeah.
reason
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
happening
Yeah.
the way
So
it is.
there's all
Yeah.
kinds of things that could bounce you off of it.
Yes.
But there's all kinds of things that pay off if you stick with
And
it.
there are so many tiny griefs in the book when that character
Yeah.
that you've gotten used to is taken away from you.
And you have to start over with
And you have to start
yeah.
over, but you're not starting
You're
over.
not starting. Yeah, it's truly magical.
yeah.
So would you say this is a good place to start?
No,
Okay. Should we go through our 5 there, or we're just off the reservation?
off the reservation.
Okay. So this is where you think people should start.
Ghost Written is his first book, and one might call it a book of short stories.
Yeah, I'd say it's
Or-
a linked collection.
It's a bit more than that. It's a weaker length than Cloud Atlas, but
Oh, much, yeah.
it's there if you know what to look for, especially if you've read his other books. These are where some of the characters that start here start to appear in other books with other links, with other, like once you start to get a feeling, and we'll talk about this, it's hard to talk about him in just like one thing at a time.
Yeah.
'Cause he's such a bleh.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
why
like,
we could go back to what we had planned.
Right, okay. Don't start there. Start with Ghost Written. I would say this is a baby Cloud Atlas. This is Cloud Atlas with training wheels.
Yeah,
This first story is freaking brilliant.
I wouldn't say start there. That wouldn't be my starting point.
Why did you ask me?
Because you can have your own.
The first sentence in this first story, it starts in Okinawa, is, "Who was blowing on the nape of my neck?"
Very sensory, right?
And it's in a subway. Now, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to admire somebody who's just going to pull you right in like that.
So let's go back to this because it gives us more of an overview of things
Sure.
to talk about.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to go with my number 1, then you can go with your number 1 of why people should try.
Sure.
Okay. So
I would say my number 1 is the joy of what this book is. The joy.
that's
of
your
this
number
book.
1.
That
This
is
one
why
book. The joy of this one
The
book.
joy of this book is so much more than that book, though, and I'm not going to spoil.
I mean, this book is triumphant.
It is.
It is absolutely triumphant.
To me, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
But it's a miracle, and all of his other books speak through it and with it, and it's a miracle of a book.
Yeah, I would say my number 1, right? I would say it's an excellent chance to claim some territory back and push your way past the marketeers that like things in their boxes on their shelves, and the shelf Nazis. Get past all those. A lot of us that watch this channel and me go to certain shelves in the bookstore, right? These are our shelves. We're comfy. They're our neighborhood. And that's where we go to look for the newest thing or what we want to find, the authors we know and love. There's some great genre fiction over there on the literature shelves. Now, where they draw the line, why they draw the line, even David Mitchell himself isn't great with it. Like he loves this stuff. So
I mean, like he has said in interviews that he detests that.
Yeah.
He said nobody who writes steps out, was like, I'm going to write a sci-fi book. No, you write your story.
Exactly.
And other people classify it.
Right.
So
these
he writes what he's good at. It just happens to be freaking everything.
Right.
So-
It's freaking everything. It is mystery. It is historical fiction. It is.
Yeah. And he's like Robert McCammon, but he's like a step beyond that.
He's sci-fi. He's post-apocalyptic. All the things you love that make it to our favorite list, he is doing, and he's doing in innovative, different types of ways. So walk over to the shelf, look for the M's on literary, and you're gonna find some amazing stuff. And that's my number one: is to defy
Yes.
the marketeers and the shelf Nazis that like things. They like to, let's ghettoize these genre and put them over here. No, get out there in the middle of the store.
Ghettoize is a great word, because I really do think that he's spoken to me insofar as taking your literary bent and applying it to genre and giving it some love, because it deserves the best attention that you can give it.
Right.
Your best attention.
'Cause
to
he
your
loves
prose. Right. So again, he's a genre boy. He grew up reading Tolkien and
Absolutely.
and
To see his eyes light up, meeting the other people's there, the other authors there at World Fantasy, and you knew right away he's one of us. He's absolutely,
he's a total geek. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you're number two.
My number two is unique narratives. You're not going to meet any cliche characters or familiar situations here. You're going to meet, what do I have? A Dutch man's forbidden love for a Japanese midwife who was stolen by a temple cult that sacrifices babies in 1799.
Yeah, that's where I would say to start.
1,000 Autumns of Jacob Dezoet.
Yeah.
That's
really
a rough start, baby.
I don't think so.
1799 is just like throwing people into Henry Goose and Adam Ewing.
It's so good because you just get lulled in.
We're talking about his fourth book.
Historical fiction, a
1,000
romance.
Autumns of Jacob Dezoet. It is, you would say, like 1799, a Dutch trading outpost at the edge of Japan when it was cut off from the rest of the world. Like how, when I heard that's what he was writing his next book about, when book 4 was coming out, and I think it's book 4, I was like, he's lost his mind.
No, it's a great.
But it is a Mars.
It's a look. This is a book about forbidden love and accounting. Until all of a sudden there's a blood cult.
Yeah, there's a blood cult, and then there's action. It's like that. Plus,
it becomes full-on horror thriller by the end.
Plus Shogun, plus Jerry Bruckheimer, plus
yes.
I was just like, what is happening? And then by the time you're just into the ships coming in and all-out war going, it's freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, parts of it were just like, what was
thinking? Some of it's laugh out loud.
Yeah,
that's where I would say to start, because I think that's where his huge overarching story starts. I think he was discovering it himself here. I think it starts in Dezoet.
Yes, but it's here.
I'm not saying there's not some connective tissue there.
Here in the first sentence I read.
I know. Don't spoil anything, but I'm just saying.
But there it is.
So do you have more?
Yes.
Okay.
You've got a British teen, the unique narratives. You've got a British teen, contemporary times, who is semi-psychic, runs away and stumbles into a war between immortals. That's Bone Clocks. Look at that beautiful cover.
Yeah, that's the UK.
That's and what a great voice this British teen has, Holly. So
he really nails it. Yeah.
Another in Cloud Atlas, you'll have the Vanity Press publisher who is placed in an evil nursing home against his will by a brother sick of his financial ineptitude. Meet Timothy Cavendish, who also appears in Bone Clocks.
Yeah.
So these
you start to see crossovers for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we'll get to that because I think you're about.
That's my number 2.
Yes.
This is my number 2.
He's writing an Uber novel.
We love us some shared universes. Stephen King's multiverse. Mayberry's connected universe that everything he does is connected. So is David Mitchell's. Now, not only is it a shared universe, but you're going along in these books for a while and you're getting a bit of the story that is happening on the physical plane, and then it explodes
without
into
even knowing
what's coming or what's happening. Then you get to see this is just one level. This story is also operating on the metaphysical layer.
It wasn't until 1,000 Autumns, which is, I hope it's book 4.
No, even then you're not really seeing it.
Not that, but it wasn't until then that you start to go, something's fishy here.
Something's fishy.
Bone Clocks
is when the veil is entirely ripped away,
like,
when he completely recontextualizes the physical with the metaphysical, much like Clive Barker was doing back in the 80s. And that's why I'm saying when he does horror, he leans all the way in and does horror. He's not afraid of genre. He's not just sprinkling it here or there because of his own proclivities and what he likes. He goes all in, right? He pushes his chips all the way. So this shared universe that moves across from Bone Clocks, and then it's a little bit of over here with Slade House, which is the most amazing ghost story, and it's so hard to do a ghost story well. So this shared universe uber novel that's going through all of his books, we love us some series, we love us a shared universe. Here is one that you're not enjoying.
There are fans, and when we were at the convention and somebody had mentioned this to him, and I was watching the look on his face because I was incredibly curious after spending just a little bit of time with him out just privately, just kind of like seeing how his mind worked. I was like, I wonder if he holds all of this in his head.
Yeah.
And somebody asked him about the spreadsheet, which is a spreadsheet
done by fans.
That fans have created with all of the characters and
that
when
connect.
they show up and how they're connected. And he just went like, and I was like, oh, he does hold on.
He does have it all up there.
Right.
He has it. That's why I'm saying he's wired differently.
He said something about, and I'm going to use the wrong word. He didn't say this exactly. He said, "I'm the laziest kind of writer."
Yeah, but that's him being humble. I don't buy it for a second.
He said, "I'm the laziest kind of writer because when I'm writing, I come along and I just say, don't I have a character already?
He says, I need a character. Didn't I already make one? I'll just plug it in.
So I'll just read." And I was like, no.
And I know, see, again, people are going to wonder, how can these characters pop up from late 18th century, 1799 to modern, again, genre? He's not afraid. He's not afraid. Yeah. So, shared universe, that was my number 2.
Yeah.
On to number 3 for you.
I'm going to say he's highly readable. He is
Even though people bounce?
That's the exception.
Yeah. If they started here...
Or even Ghostwritten, or even Slade House, or even Thousand Autumns, or
Utopia Avenue,
or Black Swan Green, which is a standalone. I think is Finley Vale.
It still connects. It still connects. Yeah.
But all of these are like he knows how to drive a story. He has a very strong voice. The man has beautiful verbs, and he's
his voice is.
It's just so stellar, and he just puts it on a track, and it just rides so fast. And that's why I think part 1 is deliberately obtuse, and so it is.
You do get lost in the language. There's no way to begin.
I don't want to.
There's no way
again. So yes, he's writing this uber novel, and yes, he's doing all of these like acrobatics here and there and whatever. But he doesn't get lost in his main mission of telling a story. That's. Like he's just really with the characters and the whatever, but just like from one sentence to the next, he's highly readable.
Yeah.
He's also making all of these where is this? I have this. Yes, I have this here. He also said that he was he's really a novella writer, not a novel writer, which is funny because he's writing an uber novel.
Yeah.
But he's doing it out of these like thin slices or layers of cake. So it's just like once you eat like the whole thing, or put like a fork through the whole thing and have one bite, it all works in harmony. But he says, how he works that is he builds these layers. So they're very readable novellas. He said himself, I get in, I get out. It's just here's a story, here's a story, here's a story.
And he's got every tool in his box. Like some are completely just all action plot driven. Some are deep character studies, and it's like, whatever he sets out to do, he's got that tool in the box.
Right. So he is working on the scale of like Tolkien and Le Guin, and am I saying that right?
I think so. Le Guin.
Asimov. He's working on these like really broad, like big epic worlds, and he's doing it just one slice at a time, and it makes him highly readable. Except for that.
Except for the beginning of this.
Just the beginning.
Yeah.
Because once you get past that, you're off.
Yeah. So number 3 for me, right? I'm going to say, look, genre blending perfection.
Yep.
And it can change like that.
On a dime.
That's why I love that Jakob Dezoe it. It's like, I don't read a lot of romance, but I was still enjoying it. I was still enjoying Jakob and his forbidden love and him trying to figure out what's going on in the accounting, and he's there for a reason. It's like, I had gotten into the story just about the time I'd gotten into it. It's like, oh, this is a horror novel. Like this straight up, this is vampiric. You know, there's no way around it. And it just shifts immediately. It shifts immediately, and it does that trick where, that George R.R. Martin does. So it's like you build these characters and you build this world and you start to care so much and you sink so deeply in. By the time dragons show up, you're like, okay, sure. I'll go with you, whatever you need. Yeah. So he's got that, and he can change at the drop of a dime, and he can change several times through one book even. And I absolutely have the most fun with it.
Yeah. Next one I was going to say that bounces off of that one a little bit is that he's a very emotional writer. Everything, like, he's not very staid or stoic. He's the humor, the romance, the horror and the heartbreak, the meaning of human existence. Like, he's not going to be dry. He's definitely going to suck you in to the story and really kind of tug at your emotions. I feel like he can manipulate them, but not in a way where you feel manipulated. So he's just a real master in that respect.
I'm going to jump off of that for my number 4. Because my number 4 is characters, the way he does character. Yeah. Because they're completely real, completely three-dimensional, completely deep. His voice is so good, and it moves from like a teenage girl to, like you say, the hard-bitten person that's been kicked around all his life in the publishing world. And he can do both. They're so completely different and individualistic in choice. You know exactly who's speaking whenever you're on the page, and you hear it. And the characters are so, even when he's dealing with a character that you would think of is the black hat or a villain, you still see yourself in it. When it comes down to it, and I have to be honest with myself, I have had thoughts like that. If I can't look in the mirror and not realize, ooh, I've had these kind of thoughts. I've been petty. I've been narcissistic. And he just does it so real. You see not only are they so individual and to themselves, but you see yourself in all of them in one way, shape, or form, which again just sucks you in and pulls you through the book because it's a shared experience, because you're starting to see some of yourself in all these characters because they're so amazingly realized. That would be my number 4.
Agreed. In that same vein, and going back to unique narrative, these are incredibly unique characters. They're not only fully realized. You're talking about a Filipino boy selling records in Japan in the 80s. You're talking about a Korean clone leading a revolution in the far future. You're talking about Hawaiian survivalists in a post-apocalypse. You're talking about an American lawyer in New Zealand in mid-18th century, and that's all in this book.
That's all in one book. Yeah.
And then we move to this one, and there's a whole nother group of them. So everything about these, like, I feel like he's like, I want to go someplace I've never been before. I want to meet someone I've never met before in a time that I wasn't alive in, or maybe I was. It's like he's got it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to see him go to Africa.
Oh, I bet he will.
I would love to.
There's no way he's not gonna. There's no way he's not gonna.
Yeah.
And this okay. My number 5, and I'll bounce right off that and sum up. It's like metaphysical mysteries and meaning. And this is another reason why I feel he's so completely readable. He's dealing with, hey, like we called it, Jakob Dezoet, we're in accounting, we're figuring out what's going on. Blood cult.
Yeah.
See, he goes to dark places. When he does horror, he leans all the way into horror. When he does post-apocalyptic, it can be bleak. There is never a story, a thread, a storyline, a character, even the dark ones, like I say, that you can see a bit of yourself in, that he loses meaning, optimism, hope for us as a species and what we can achieve and what we could possibly be moving towards and what our meaning through story is, how it defines us and inspires us. He never loses that, even when he's dealing with the darkest of themes, which I just find, for me, connects so well with me because I'm somewhat of an optimist myself, I think. And that just the metaphysical meanings and the mysteries of it always speak to me because at his heart I see a kindred spirit that sees the world, sees the magic in the world, and sees worth and value and optimism and hope in the world.
Yeah, and it's definitely not a sugar-coated situation.
Again, dark places for sure.
Dark places, and you know, like I really think that he doesn't shy away from, you know, war, genocide, cruelty, all these things that I talked about before. And I just think these humans, as far as like, you know, hard landing, and everybody coming in for this hard landing is part of his whole, like what we talked about, his personality, this Zen view of how the world works, this Eastern view. I understand as
he spent a lot of time in Japan.
He spent a lot of time in Japan as a young man, and so that he, you know, that's really coming through.
Right.
This Eastern philosophy
But
of how
like
the
this
world
one
works.
book alone, the cruelty that we can have one for each other from the mid 18th or late 18th century, classism and social mores, all the way to a far-flung post-apocalyptic, again, social mores, classism, when we're trying to put civilization back together. And even in those moments, even in the moments of post-apocalyptic, when civilization is gone, he's finding meaning and hope and desire for us to push forward and connect with each other and pick up the pieces and understand what went wrong and move past it. So I connect with him, I think, on a very spiritual level because of his hope.
I'm at the end of mine.
That was the end of mine as well.
There we are.
So you would say start with Ghost Written.
I would. Maybe it's because I started there, and I started there and I just really understood what he was trying to do and what his innovations really were. And then when I got to Cloud Atlas, I was a little bit more.
You were prepared.
I was a little bit more informed about his vibe and what he was capable of. So when he took it up a level, 52 levels in Cloud Atlas, I was like, okay, wow, that's really special.
Wow, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Really special.
I would say,
and he continues to level it up.
I like the deep end of the pool. So I'm going to say starting place would either be Jakob de Zoet, Thousand Autumns of Jacob.
Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Zoet is the title, full title.
Or Cloud Atlas. I think, because it is, of these all, it is one of the most standalone.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't tie in, but you get a complete story here that doesn't, I mean, you don't necessarily have to have the rest.
Standalone, you're talking about like Black Swan Green or Number 9 Dream. Those
they're not as, they're you don't get a good enough taste of what he does with those. I don't think.
So they're not standalone.
Well, they are standalone, but I mean, this is, I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with it.
Butt now.
It's Thousand Autumns or Cloud Atlas.
Alrighty.
Those are my picks. Those are my picks to get started.
I just hate for people to start with Cloud Atlas and be discouraged.
Yeah.
Because I think they're really missing out if you don't give it a try. Not that I wasn't. I totally get it.
Yeah. It is a trampoline book, but understand when you go in, what needs to get through will get through, and the language is supposed to, it's a book about story, so it's supposed to be thick.
Supposed to be.
The language is, you're supposed to be thinking about the language because the whole book is about how we tell story and how it informs us and inspires us.
I'll share something that one of my graduate school teachers told me when
Absolutely, that'd be
I
awesome.
was reading Heart of Darkness.
You hated it.
She was making me read Heart of Darkness, and I hated it. And I would email her, because we had email then.
Yeah, we had email then. Yeah, I do remember, yeah.
And complain that it's just, it's full of adjectives and adverbs, and it's deliberately thick, and she said, maybe that's the point of it. Maybe you're supposed to be in the jungle with him, this jungle of words. Why don't you be a snake on a branch and let the story happen?
And just move
Watch
between.
it.
Yeah.
Watch it go by.
Yeah.
So I said, all right.
And now how do you feel about it?
It's still one of my favorite books.
Of all time.
Of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And racism and horrible sexism aside.
Yeah. But you go back to that over and over again in your own work. I know.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do.
So I think a little bit of the same thing here.
I just think a little bit of frustration is sometimes really good for you as a reader if you have someone to guide you to say there is a reward. It's a high risk, high reward situation. Hang in there. And
So-
if that could be my message today,
Yes.
it would be that is it. That is it.
That is why I wanted to bring you up here and why I wanted us to sit down and do this, because I do completely wanted to guide a little bit and say why it's worth sticking and giving it a shot.
Yeah.
And you know who guides us here is these amazing humans right here, or maybe I should put them here, wherever they'll fit, wherever Jacob makes them fit. These amazing humans that help us steer this channel.
I'm going to move over for that.
They help us steer this channel. They make decisions here because we're not always great at that. They pick what we read in our Patreon read, all the way up to getting their own content right here on this channel. If you have any interest of finding out about that, right down there in the description box, there's a Patreon link. You can learn all about
A
it.
growing list.
A growing list
Oh,
of amazing, amazing human people.
It warms
Yeah,
my heart.
that make everything happen here.
Your community warms my heart.
Let me tell you, this is
really,
the best.
I really enjoy being here, and I enjoy interacting.
It is
with
the best community
your
ever.
channel. I really do.
And you guys, right down there before we go, hit us up with a comment. Have you tried David Mitchell? Do you want to try David Mitchell? What have you tried? What do you want to try? I love comments. I started this whole channel for comments to talk books with people that love books like we do.
I'll take a peek too.
Yeah,
See if
absolutely.
I can-
And
I
again,
can-
she
see if I
she
can
will
encourage.
she will be watching this one to help out.
Yeah.
And that thumbs up helps us find new people, helps us grow the channel.
It does.
And if you've not subscribed yet, boop, hit that button. It's really easy and it makes you feel good to subscribe and hang out with us. So thank you so much for joining me up here again. It makes it special for me when you're here. So I really like it when you're here.
I like you.
Yeah, I like you too.
Check this box.
I'm gonna keep you.
Okay.
So thank you so much. That is me. My name is John Minton. This is
Matilda.
Matilda Minton. Jacob Minton's hiding over there next to a mic that's turned off.
He says hi.
He says hi. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for everything. This has been Talking Story.